Hey guys, tonight we drift into a tale most drowsy, a royal procession wrapped in velvet, shuffling under a silk canopy and parading to the slow rhythm of ancient drums. You're not in England or Versailles, though. You're in the highlands of Ethiopia just before dawn, where the air smells like roasted coffee and eucalyptus trees whisper over hills long untouched by hurry. In front of you, an emperor sits stoic on a golden litter, shaded not by a golden crown but by a brilliant, oversized umbrella, swaying gently as robed priests hold it above him like a floating halo. Yes, that's the hook. Tonight we're talking about umbrellas, regal ones, sacred ones, giant, jewel-colored, ecclesiastically carried umbrellas that somehow ended up as royal insignia. You probably won't survive this. The sheer lack of urgency might just knock you into REM by Section 3. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop your location and local time in the comments. Always fun to see who's sleepless in Singapore and who's yawning in New York. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge through a courtyard lined with stone lions, each one chipped, staring blankly through time. The smell of incense hangs thick. Monks chant low, hypnotic syllables. You're surrounded by men in spotless white robes, their movements as slow and deliberate as melting wax. At the center of it all, under a canopy the size of a trampoline, sits a man whose feet never touch the ground. He is the Negusa Nagast, the King of Kings, but your eyes keep drifting upward to the umbrella. The thing's enormous, not beach day enormous, we're talking stage prop level. It's crimson bordered in gold thread, hand-painted with crosses and suns and symbols that make you feel mildly guilty for not knowing what they mean. The pole is carved wood, dark and lacquered, topped with what looks like a silver bird. And the person holding it? A priest. Not a courtier, not a royal page, but a man of the cloth. And he's sweating buckets. Here's your first fun fact for tonight. In Ethiopia, sacred umbrellas were never mere sun shields. They were manifestations of divine authority. Holding one over a monarch wasn't just etiquette, it was theology. You didn't block the sun for the king. You acknowledged that he was the sun. Big difference, the umbrella said in quiet, sacred whisper. This one is chosen. And if you were hoping for a brisk explanation, let's go ahead and disabuse you of that. Ethiopia does nothing brisk. The coronation ceremony alone could last 3 full days. And that's if the donkeys didn't escape, the drums didn't crack, and the clergy didn't decide to chant just a little longer than usual. Every step was ritual, and every ritual was multi-layered like a very slow lasagna.
You walk past rows of spectators, nobles, villagers, foreign guests blinking in the high-altitude sun, all trying to act. Like this isn't the 14th hour of hymn number 80. The air is dry but not hot. You imagine what it's like under the emperor's robes. There are probably 12 layers. Silk under wool under leather, heavy, sacred. It probably smells like sandalwood and mild stress. Now here's the thing historians argue about, because of course they do. Some claim the umbrella tradition came straight from pre-Christian Ethiopian beliefs, from the Aksumite Empire's practice of shading their rulers with ceremonial awnings. Others say it came via Coptic Christianity from Egypt, where bishops were shaded as a sign of humility and separation from the commoner sun. Still others say it's older than all that, possibly tied to Judaic traditions smuggled through the Queen of Sheba. Nobody agrees. Obviously, this is history we're talking about, but the symbolism was universal. The umbrella marked holy space. The space beneath it wasn't public. It was divine property. That's why, if you were dumb enough to stand under the imperial umbrella without permission, bad things happened. We're talking curses, or worse, paperwork. Priests would gasp, guards would shift, someone would write your name down and mutter about your soul. Nobody wants their soul muttered about. Some 19th century Europeans thought it was hilarious. There's a delightful story of a British envoy trying to stand under Emperor Johannes's umbrella to get out of the sun, and being swiftly, ceremoniously removed by 2 spear-wielding priests with an expression that said, "Not today, heretic." The envoy did not try again. The umbrellas themselves were heirlooms, handed down, anointed, sometimes even buried with their original emperors. They weren't mass-produced or sold in market stalls. You couldn't just pick one up and start waving it around unless you fancied being buried. face first in a monastery garden. The church blessed each one. Craftsmen who made them were often semi-clerical, and they stitched prayers into the seams like spiritual QR codes. And of course, the umbrella's design mattered. Red symbolized power. Blue symbolized protection. Gold meant you're basically a sun god. Congrats. But purple, that was the serious one. If you saw a purple umbrella bobbing through a crowd, you moved. You didn't want to block whoever was underneath it. That could be the emperor himself. Or worse, his grandmother. There's an account, possibly exaggerated, because historians can't resist drama, of Emperor Menelik II, pausing an entire national ceremony because someone's umbrella was the wrong color, purple where there should have been blue. The guilty umbrella was removed with the kind of theatricality normally reserved for murder trials and beauty pageants. Everyone nodded somberly and the ceremony resumed. Crisis averted. So yes, you're watching a man get crowned, but your eyes keep floating upward. The umbrella trembles in the breeze like a living thing. It casts a long, deliberate shadow across the emperor's lap. You hear a goat bleat in the distance. Somewhere, a priest sneezes mid-prayer. You do your best not to yawn too obviously. The umbrella flutters once, twice. Sacred shade. Royal stillness. Time slips sideways. And under that slow-moving canopy, history stretches like a cat in the sun. You blink once, twice, and now it's dusk. Not in the courtyard anymore, but in the highlands beyond, where the wind howls low over tufts of golden grass and orthodox crosses glint from craggy hilltop monasteries. You've somehow found yourself tagging, along with a group of scribes and umbrella bearers, trudging up the slope to a place called Debri Libanos, one of the oldest monasteries in Ethiopia. The sky blushes pink, and every step feels like a rehearsal for something ancient. They don't talk much, just the rhythmic slap of sandals on dirt and the occasional clink of a censer swinging lazily from a monk's hand. You're not sure why they brought the umbrellas. There's no emperor here, no dignitary, no audience, and yet there they are, folded but still vibrant, canopies of crimson, sapphire, and one daring shade of green, their silk trembling with the wind like butterfly wings clipped to wooden poles. One scribe finally speaks softly. The umbrella isn't for shade. It's for separation. You chew on that for a minute. Separation from what? From sun? From people? From sin? The monk offers no further comment, because of course he doesn't. That would be too easy. Instead, he gestures toward a cliffside cave, where you spot a lone figure, kneeling beneath a tiny open umbrella, a shrunken version of the royal ones, just big enough to cover his bowed head and shoulders. Turns out in some monastic traditions, even hermits were given umbrellas, small ones, to signify their spiritual authority. They weren't rulers of land, but rulers of their solitude. Historians still argue whether this custom originated from royal precedent or developed alongside it in parallel. It's the theological chicken and egg debate of Ethiopian sunshade lore. You're told this hermit hasn't spoken in 7 years, but you could swear you just saw him smirk. Back in the capital, meanwhile, Gondar, or maybe Addis Ababa, depending on which century your sleepy brain wants to occupy, ceremonial umbrellas weren't limited to emperors. Oh no, bishops had them. Generals sometimes had them. Even high-ranking nobility could wield the honor, provided they passed the right rituals and didn't have embarrassing cousins. There's a hierarchy to it, like a traffic system made of silk. If your umbrella had fringe, you were fancy. If it had bells, you were holy and annoying. If it had multiple layers, you were probably compensating for something. And yes, umbrella envy was real. Courtiers would eye each other's canopies like teenagers checking out sneakers. Oh, you got the tri-layer gold-threaded Blessed Edition? Must be nice. And for the love of the Virgin, do not mix up your umbrellas. There's one delightful tale of a visiting noble accidentally picking up the wrong sacred umbrella after a festival. Within hours, a small mob had formed. Not violent, mind you, just very passive-aggressive. A priest allegedly stood in silence outside the man's house until the correct umbrella was returned. The noble reportedly aged 10 years in guilt. You climb further into this hazy folklore, wondering how an object so practical became so charged. Think about it, Europe had scepters. China had jade seals. Persia had thrones you couldn't sit on without several permits and a family tree. But Ethiopia? Ethiopia said, let's elevate the weather shield. And maybe it makes sense. Here, altitude is life. The sun is unforgiving, and to be shaded is no small comfort. It's a mark of favor, like being told by the cosmos itself, you may rest. There's also the biblical dimension. Remember, Ethiopia's monarchy famously claimed descent from King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, a key line of royalty that styled itself not merely African but divinely sanctioned. And in that lineage, the umbrella became not a status symbol, but a throne you carry with you. One that hovers always. It doesn't support the king. It acknowledges him. And let's not forget the church. Ethiopian Orthodox Christianity is as old as some European hills. Deeply visual, stubbornly mystical, and deeply resistant to modern trims. In their rituals, umbrellas aren't decorations, they're spiritual infrastructure. Try watching a Timket procession, the Ethiopian Epiphany. Priests in crimson and gold robes march through the streets, chanting, swinging incense, and carrying tablets, replicas of the Ark of the Covenant, always under silk umbrellas. The tablet can't be touched by sunlight, they say, nor should divine mystery be exposed like bread at a barbecue. Quirky fact, at one 19th century Timket celebration, someone lost an umbrella in the river. Chaos ensued. Not because it was valuable, though it was, but because it had been blessed. A team of young men formed a rescue brigade using sticks, ropes, and a very irritated donkey. They retrieved it eventually. The donkey, sources say, was never the same. And yet, despite all this sacred layering, there's something oddly humble about the whole thing. The umbrella doesn't scream authority the way a sword or a crown might. It hums it, softly. Like a lullaby you half remember from childhood. You reach the top of the trail now and the sun has vanished. Stars begin to prick the sky like slow confetti. The umbrellas are planted upright in a ring, their handles driven into the ground. The monks gather inside the circle and begin to pray. Their voices rise and fall, more like breathing than speaking. A soft breeze rattles the fringe. The green umbrella turns slightly in the wind, revealing an inscription stitched into the lining. You squint to read it. It says simply, "Shelter the soul."